Hi guys, I'm Shelley, welcome back to my channel, and another book review because I'm reading a lot because I'm stressed and it's the only way that keeps calm. Anybody else stressed? I finally read Find Me by Aciman, which is the follow-up to Call Me By Your Name, which is right there. And I'll probably link it down below. I did a review of Call Me By Your Name probably 2-3 years ago. Got a bit emosh. That book has a place in my heart, so when I found out that Andre was doing a follow-up to it, I got very excited, and then I got very nervous and I didn't read it when it came out because I was scared it wasn't going to be what I wanted it to be. So let's jump straight into it. Is this sequel perfect? No. But while reading this book, I came to realise that no sequel can actually be perfect. There will always be conflict between what the author is writing and what the reader expects and now wants from that sequel book. They want it to be what they want it to be. So what is this book about, and where does it find us in the Elio Oliver Call Me By Your Name drama that we've already have? Well, this is a book of 3 parts. It tells Samuel's point of view, Elio's point of view, and Oliver's point of view. Straight off, it sort of reminded me of the Before Sunset film series, where you had all these kind of intercrossing, intertime sections, and I really loved that. You start with Sammy, who we previously knew as Elio's dad, the wonderful Professor Perlman, who, let's face it, was a complete legend in Call Me By Your Name. His story starts on a train journey on his way to Rome, where he's going to give a lecture, and he meets a woman and starts a conversation with her on the train. That conversation then follows the next 2 or 3 days you spend with him as he rediscovers Rome, where he lived when I believe it was when he was a student. So he's rediscovering all these things about his past, and he starts to understand how he got to that point of his life and where he wants to go next and what he wants to do next. This is where we have our first crossover with Elio. They meet up for coffee and have a chat and reconnect about the past. Then we move on to part 2 and we pick up with Elio. Elio is now living and working in Paris as a teacher, and he picks up piano gigs here and there around the city. He goes to a concert in a church and bumps into this guy named Michel, and they start a conversation, which again turns into 3 or 4 days of discovering who Elio is again and remembering all these things from his past. He also gets given this piece of music by Michel that sets off a riddle that he's trying to find out, and as he's discovering that, he's discovering more about himself. And this is where we have our second crossover, because Elio's story ends as he's about to go to America to see Oliver, which is the crossover with Call Me By Your Name. Have I lost you yet? It sounds complicated, but it really actually isn't. I don't know how this book manages to flow, but it does, because we just go from Sammy thinking about Elio, and then we're in Elio's story, and we go to Elio thinking about Oliver, and then we're in Oliver's story. It just sort of seamlessly moves from one person to the other, having 5-year gaps at the same time, so everything is sort of sorted in the person you've just read about's life. Am I making sense? Probably not. So we're now 5 years after Elio has visited Oliver. We're inside Oliver's point of view. He's still married, he still has 2 kids, and he's moving from one city to another, and he's about to have his big change in his life. And he starts thinking about Elio and hearing him inside his head and thinking, what should I do next? Should I follow the voice in my head and find Elio, or should I carry on in the path that I was supposed to be going on? And this is where I don't want to give too many spoilers away, so I'll stop telling you about the story now. I've got to admit, I was really nervous going into this book because I felt so much for Call Me By Your Name, and I'd read other people's reviews, and it was a bit like Marmite. Some people have hated this because all they wanted was Oliver and Elio. Some people have loved it. Personally, I found it fascinating, especially being able to hear more about Sammy's life, because he's alluded to in Call Me By Your Name, but you don't really know his history. You don't really know how he became Elio's father and what drives him, and it's really fascinating. I also loved learning about Elio's missing years and how he becomes the man he's supposed to be, and also then with Oliver, how somehow they have crossed over. Elio is the more mature of the two, whereas Oliver, even though he's the eldest, is sort of behind him in emotional maturity. I really loved being back in this world. I love the way Andre Aciman writes. I sometimes feel a bit dumb reading his writing because I think it raises the bar. A bit like, okay, this is going to be a weird analogy, but it's a bit like watching The West Wing. I don't understand a lot of the things that happen in the West Wing. But by watching it, I feel like I'm becoming smarter because I pick up on words and then I go and look them up and I'm just like, oh, that means that. And I somehow feel smarter from the vocabulary of the West Wing, and I feel smarter from the vocabulary of Andre Aciman. He just makes my brain work on another level, but through emotions. Everything is very emotive. It's how everybody feels, not really what is happening. Not much happens in the book physically, but emotionally, all these three characters change so much. I listened to it on audiobook because I had difficulty reading. The extra cherry on top is the fact that it's narrated by Michael Stuhlbarg, who plays Professor Perlman, Elio's dad, in the film version of Call Me By Your Name. But I gotta say, I really loved this book. Not as much as Call Me By Your Name, because I don't think it is possible to love it that much, but I genuinely love what Andre has done with the story and how he's moved it on and how he's brought Elio's dad into it as well and made it about these three men and how completely different but completely the same at the root core. They just crave love and they crave understanding. I would love to know what your thoughts are if you have read it or if you're planning on reading it, so please comment down below, because I'm just really interested in the Marmite situation, and if you didn't like it, I'd like to understand why you didn't like it. Is it just because the Elliot Oliver thing? I hope you guys are good. Thanks for putting up with my rambling. Anyway, I'm gonna shut up. I hope you guys are good, and I will see you guys soon. Bye. What is it with any book I have emotions about? I can't get my words out straight, and I can't get how I feel about a book out straight. I mean, there's so many quotes in this book that I'm gonna have to go back and listen to again, because I'm just like, oh, I need that in my life. I need that to use that in my life, because that just expresses everything I'm thinking. Yeah.